In Yu-Gi-Oh!, being able to special summon a monster from the deck is one of the most powerful effects in the game. So in this list, we'll go over the best cards of all time, which could special summon monsters from the deck. And at number 10, we have Rescue Cat. This card has the effect where you can send it to the graveyard in order to special summon 2 level 3 or lower beast type monsters from your deck. Now, being able to special summon 2 monsters from your deck is incredibly powerful. So the way they thought to balance this card was to restrict it to one niche monster type, and only monsters of low level, plus they get destroyed during the end phase. But then, when it was combined with a card like Last Will, players were able to use Rescue Cat multiple times per turn in order to fill their board with the Malicious, Radiant, and Pandas, which allowed them to get over 8,000 points of damage on the board using 2 cards from the hand, which was kind of a big deal back then, and got the card Last Will banned because of it. Then Rescue Cat didn't see very much competitive play until the Synchro era, when M-X-Saber Airbellum came out, a level 3 Beast Tuner monster, which allowed Rescue Cat to be used as a 1-card Synchro summon, and opened up an OTK when used with old school Dark Strike Fighter, where with a couple copies of Rescue Cat and Summoner Monk, you could attack over your opponent with your Dark Strike Fighters, and then tribute them with their own effects in order to burn your opponent for whatever damage you needed in order to win. And then this is what finally got Rescue Cat banned, because its effect was too strong with Synchro monsters, and as the game progressed, its effect just got stronger and stronger, making sure that it was never going to come off the ban list. So eventually, they printed a card called Rescue Rabbit, who was supposed to be like a nerfed version of Rescue Cat, with all kinds of restrictions on it, where it can't be special summoned from the deck, you can only use its effect once per turn, you have to banish this card in order to activate its effect instead of sending it to the graveyard, and it can only target normal monsters from your deck, and only 2 level 4 lower normal monsters of the same name, to be even more specific. And with all of these restrictions placed on Rescue Rabbit, it immediately saw a ton of success and was put on the ban list at Limited, where you can only use 1 copy per deck. Because it turns out, bringing out 2 monsters from your deck is still just a really powerful effect, even with all kinds of restrictions placed on it like Rescue Rabbit had. Eventually though, they gave Rescue Cat an errata, and changed the effect to negate the effects of the beast type monsters it brings out, and give Rescue Cat a hard once per turn. Giving it this hard once per turn is really what allowed them to finally unban the card, because the big thing about Rescue Cat's brokenness was its ability to use its effect multiple times per turn. And at number 9, we have Spellbook of Judgment. This is probably one of the most powerful cards ever made, which also happens to have an effect to special summon a monster from the deck. So what this card does is during the end phase, you get to add Spellbook spell cards from your deck to your hand equal to the number of spell cards you activated this turn. And then you get to special summon a spellcaster type monster from your deck who has a level less than or equal to the number of spellbook cards you added to your hand with its effect. So, if you use this card and then activated like 6 spell cards, at the end of your turn you get to add 6 spellbook cards to your hand, and then special summon a level 6 or lower spellcaster type monster from your deck. Now the fact that you got to add 6 cards to your hand at the end of your turn, or even more, I'm just using 6 as an example because that's the hand size limit, is in of itself super overpowered, ridiculously so, but on top of that, it also lets you special summon any spellcaster from your deck, as long as its level was low enough, of course. Usually, people would special summon out Jojin the Spiritualist in order to stop their opponent from special summoning monsters during their turn. And the reason I gave this card a low spawn on this list is because its effect to special summon from the deck was never really the reason why this card was super strong. It was more of a very good effect added on top of another very good effect, but wasn't the main reason this card got banned. And at number 8, we have Destiny Hero Malicious. This card can banish itself from the graveyard to special summon another copy of itself from your deck. Its effect is very simple, and in fact was thought of as kind of bad when it first came out, until people finally got around to figuring out that being able to bring out a monster from your deck while only using a resource from your graveyard is just pure advantage. It's basically a +1 from the graveyard that doesn't restrict you in any other ways during the turn, unlike cards with similar effects like Orcust Harp Horror, which allows you to special summon an Orcust monster from your deck by banishing it from the graveyard, but locks you into only special summoning dark monsters for the rest of the turn and has a hard once per turn on its effect. And Orcust Harp Horror is absolutely an amazing card. It's really good and could have easily have made this list if there wasn't so many other broken cards to push it out of the top 10. Kind of like Destiny Hero Malicious, and the fact that its effect is not once per turn, and if you have a way to recycle it, or even not, because at 3 copies of it in your deck, you can basically go +2 off of its graveyard effect, since with no other recycling, you get to special summon 2 monsters as long as you're sending them back to the graveyard for extra deck monster plays, or tribute summons or whatever. At 3 copies, it's actually a +2 in any kind of deck that's trying to make use of this card, and getting a +2 from the graveyard is kinda broken when you remember that Pot of Greed is only a +1, and that's why this card goes on and off the semi-limited list all the time. And at number 7, we have Altergeist Multifaker. This card can special summon itself from your hand if you activate a trap card. And when this card is special summoned, you can special summon any one Altergeist monster from your deck, except another copy of itself. It also locks you out of special summoning other monsters except Altergeist monsters for the rest of the turn though, and both of its effects are hard once per turns. So they did their best to try to balance it out, considering just how easy it is to use this card's effect. But here's the thing with Multifaker. The archetype it belongs to is basically dominated by trap cards, and has cards which can return this card to your hand or deck in order to recycle its effect basically every single turn. And here's the big thing, including during your opponent's turns. So for the average Altergeist deck, as soon as their trap cards are live, i.e. they're able to actually activate them outside of their opening turn, they can very easily activate Multifaker's effect during both players' turns, every turn. And thanks to Altergeist Silquitus, they can also bounce their opponent's cards in the process of recycling Multifaker to bring out more monsters from the deck. And because of how this archetype is able to easily make use of Multifaker, and easily search it out thanks to personal spoofing, they limited Multifaker to 1 copy in order to try to rein in its powerful effect. And even at 1 copy, Multifaker was still able to top events because its effect is just that good. And at number 6, we have Zodiac Rat Peer. This card has the effect that while it's attached to an Exceeds monster as an Exceeds material, that monster will gain an effect to detach 1 Exceeds material in order to special summon another copy of Zodiac Rat Peer from your hand or deck. And while this effect is once per turn, it's only a soft once per turn. And here's the thing you should know about the Zodiac archetype. Any Zodiac monster can be used as the full requirement to Exceed summon any Zodiac Exceeds monster. So a single Rat Peer could be used to Exceed summon a Zodiac monster, who will then gain the effect of Rat Peer to special summon another copy from your deck, who could then be used as the full material for another Zodiac Exceeds monster, who will then gain its effect to special summon another Rat Peer from your deck, who can then be used as full material for another Exceeds monster. So a single Rat Peer can easily give you 3 monsters on the board, in an archetype that was already hyper consistent, and has 2 of its Exceeds monsters on the ban list because they were so good. Which is why this card got limited almost immediately because the effect generates too much advantage too quickly, in a deck that's already really good at generating advantage, to the point where this card still saw play even though its effect became useless, because it also had an additional effect where when it was normal summoned you could mill any Zodiac card from your deck to the graveyard. And even with the 2 good Zodiac Exceeds monsters currently banned, Zodiac Rat Peer is still only at 1 copy per deck, because its effect was kinda broken. And it's kind of funny that they did limit this card, because it literally makes its Exceeds effect useless, as you can't summon another copy from your deck if this is the only copy you can play in your deck. And at number 5, we have Inzektor Dragonfly. Now, this card has the effect where if the card equipped to it is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon any Inzektor monster from your deck. And it also has the effect where it can attach an Inzektor monster from your hand or graveyard to this card. Now, this effect of attaching an Inzektor card to Dragonfly is once per turn, but its effect to special summon cards from the deck is not. Now, there's also a card called Inzektor Hornet that has an effect while it's equipped to another Inzektor card, where it can send itself to the graveyard to destroy 1 card on the field. So if you equip Dragonfly with a card like Inzektor Sword, and use Dragonfly's effect to attach a Hornet to itself, you could use Hornet to send itself to the graveyard in order to destroy your own equipped card, the Inzektor Sword, which would technically be sending 2 equipped cards from Dragonfly to the graveyard at the same time, and allows them to special summon 2 monsters from the deck. And also Sword would then allow you to add an Inzektor monster from your graveyard to your hand. So, if you then brought out some Inzektor Centipedes, they could allow you to search out even more Inzektors from your deck, as even cards like Inzektor Gigamantis, which can equip itself from your hand to Inzektors, and also special summon Inzektor monsters from the graveyard if it's destroyed, allowing you to swarm the field with even more Inzektors and proccing Dragonfly's effect an additional time. Basically, because Dragonfly doesn't have a once per turn on its special summon from the deck effect, a single Dragonfly can enable you to fill your board with Inzektor monsters, while also destroying every card on your opponent's side of the field thanks to Hornet. And that's why Inzektor Dragonfly was limited on the ban list for so long, because at 1 copy, it severely slows down the consistency of the deck of trying to get Dragonfly on the field. There are very few cards which can special summon monsters from the deck as well as Inzektor Dragonfly, and the only reason he's not at the number 1 is because it's very specific to one archetype, and the next 4 spots will be much more generic special summon monsters that are a lot more splashable in the average deck. But Dragonfly is absolutely the king of the archetype-specific spam special summon monsters from your deck card, as no other archetype can do it better than Dragonfly. And it really goes to show you how strong the current meta decks are if they thought it was okay to unlimit Dragonfly without an errata in one of the most recent ban lists. And at number 4, we have Danger Jackalope. Now, basically all of the Danger cards are really good, because they have an effect where they can special summon themselves from your hand if you reveal the card in your hand, then allow your opponent to randomly discard one from yours. And then if the card they discarded was not the chosen Danger monster, it gets to special summon itself from your hand, and then you get to draw a card. It's this last part of the effect, the one that lets you draw 1 card, that makes all of the Dangers incredibly useful, as being able to special summon yourself while also drawing a card is just a pure +1 in advantage, with the only downside being that if they choose the Danger in your hand at random, it gets sent to the graveyard and you don't get to special summon it or draw 1 card. However, each of the Dangers also has an effect for when they're discarded, and the second effect does have a hard once per turn on it, and it's the second effect that separates the Dangers from each other. And Danger Jackalope's second effect is that when it's discarded to the graveyard from your hand, you get to special summon any 1 Danger monster from your deck. Now, seeing as this is an archetype-specific special summon from the deck, similar to Inzektor Dragonfly, the reason Jackalope has a higher spot is because the entire Danger archetype can easily be played with other decks, in order to just make them better. And rarely do you play 1 singular copy of a Danger. You usually play a few copies of other Dangers in whatever deck you're splashing the Danger engine into. And because of that, Danger Jackalope's effect to special summon a card from the deck could actually be considered generic, because of how well Dangers play with other decks, to the point where Dangers are one of the most used archetypes in meta decks, without any meta decks being a pure Danger deck, because they excel at making other decks better. And that's what makes this effect so good, and why this card is currently limited to 2 copies on the semi-limited list, because special summoning from the deck is just very powerful. And at number 3, we have M-X-Saber Invoker. This is a generic rank 3 monster, where you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card to special summon 1 level 4 Earth Warrior or Beast Warrior monster from your deck, in defense position, and it's destroyed during the end phase. Now, the target for this card is very specific, as it has to be an Earth attribute monster of 1 of 2 types. But since this card itself requires generic materials to bring out, i.e. just 2 level 3 monsters, and since it's an extra deck monster, that actually turns this card into just pure advantage, as long as you just set up a Garnet in your deck as a target for M-X-Saber to bring out. And the usual Garnet being set in the deck is Heroic Challenger Thousand Blades, which is an Earth attribute warrior monster that can special summon itself from the graveyard once per turn, if you take damage to your life points. So, a combo with M-X-Saber Invoker would be to bring it out like normal, use its effect to bring out Thousand Blades from your deck, and then use your 2 new cards in the field for some kind of extra deck play. and then use an effect like Zephyros the Elite or Trick Clown in order to special summon a card that inflicts damage to you, which would proc Thousand Blades effect to bring itself out, essentially allowing you to bring out Thousand Blades 2 times in the same turn. That's just a lot of easy advantage, especially from a card that can be special summoned from the extra deck easily. And it's usually extra deck monsters with these kinds of effects that are just much more powerful than main deck monsters. Which is why M-X-Saber Invoker is currently a banned card, for being a little too easy to bring out, while also being good at bringing out other monsters from the deck. And at number 2, we have Summon Sorceress. This is a link monster who can special summon one card from your deck to a zone this card points to, as long as it shares the same type of monster as another one of the monsters this card points to. And then the monster you special summon from the deck has its effects negated. Now, seeing as this card has pretty generic summoning requirements, where you just need 2 or more monsters of the same type, except tokens, this card was actually pretty easy to bring out. It also allows you to special summon a monster from your hand to your opponent's side of the field if you wanted to guarantee to have a monster in a zone that this card points to, in order to special summon another monster from your deck. Basically, what's so good about this card is that it allows you to summon any monster from your deck, as long as they simply share the same monster type as another card this one's pointing to, which is so good in so many kinds of decks that this card was kind of broken on release. There wasn't really an effect that could search out any monster like that directly from the deck, as there's no restrictions on the monster can bring out. It can be of any level, any attack power value, any type or attribute. It doesn't restrict other summons for the rest of the turn, just as long as it shares a monster type with another card this one points to. So, this card got banned pretty quickly because being able to special summon any monster from your deck is super strong, especially on an easy to bring out extra deck monster, and no one was really surprised when it happened. And at number 1, we have Last Will. This is a normal spell card which has the effect that if a monster on your side of the field is sent to the graveyard this turn, you can special summon one monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck. Now, when this card first came out, it wasn't very useful, because it only brought out a low attack monster from your deck, and only if a monster on your side of the field was sent to a graveyard that turn. And it was kind of difficult to get a monster in your graveyard during your turn, intentionally, in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! And monsters with less than 1500 attack didn't really have good effects yet either. So when Rescue Cat came out, a monster with a good effect and a low attack power value, Last Will finally got to show everyone how broken its effect is, and eventually got put on the ban list, where it has stayed till this day. And just like Rescue Cat, Last Will probably not come off the ban list unless he gets an errata. Because here's the thing about Last Will, its effect would be super good in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! As sending monsters to your graveyard is something that just kind of happens passively during everyone's turn. There's a hand trap called Nibiru, the Primal Being, that can only be activated after your opponent has summoned 5 times during their turn. And since it's so easy for the average deck to summon more than 5 times per turn, this hand trap actually sees a lot of play. So being able to meet the requirements for Last Will is almost as easy as just activating the card from your hand as if it didn't have a requirement. And then you would get a free special summon of any one monster with less than 1500 attack from your deck. As most decks play monsters with less than 1500 attack that they would absolutely love to special summon to the field directly from the deck, especially with a card that's not a hard once per turn. If you draw multiple copies of Last Will, you only need to meet the activation requirement one time in order to use all 3 copies of the card. There's another monster in the game called Sandgan that can only activate when it's sent from the field to the graveyard and allows you to add a monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. And this card was so good that it was banned, had its effect errata to be nerfed, where it was given a hard once per turn and you could no longer activate the card if it was added to your hand during the turn. And even this nerfed version of just searching out any monster with less than 1500 attack still occasionally sees play in competitive decks. And Last Will is basically a way better Sandgan, and is without a doubt the best card in the game that allows you to special summon from the deck. Alright, and that's the list. If you think I missed any other better cards that can special summon from the deck, or have ideas for videos just like this one, I'd love to hear about them down in the comments. And also, don't forget to subscribe for weekly videos just like this one.